Yeah, so quick intro on myself and ModeOne. I'm Matt Rasmussen. I've been in eDiscovery just a little less than Cheryl has. I just crested over 22 years in the space. I've been 50-50 or more of a 60-40 split on law firm supporting versus like LSP support in the US. Before I started ModeOne, I formerly was running the litigation technology group over at O'Melveny and Myers out of Los Angeles, and that's actually where we came up with the concept for ModeOne. So the story I always tell is I was handling a major M&A deal, and there was an SVP that needed his phone collected, and so when I showed up on site with my kit and 80 cords to collect his phone, and I explained that I needed to make an entire image of his phone to grab just a few text messages that the company was claiming ownership over. It got very combative, and so it kind of made me start thinking. I had delivered I'm sure you guys have delivered this to your clients before, is I need to collect everything off your phone. I'm not going to look at it all, but I need to collect it all so I can grab the specific things I'm looking for. And so I just kind of put myself in the custodian's shoes there on, man, if somebody was collecting my phone, would I want all my photos going out or anything else that's on my phone if they just needed my text conversations or WhatsApp conversations or other, specific components in there. So we started ModeOne in 2018. O'Melveny was gracious enough to allow me to kind of moonlight on that project and develop that project while I was there. We are in our third year here now in full production. So we've had 2 very strong years here. Yeah, so that's kind of the high level of what kind of got us into it. I'm not going to be very slide heavy. I would love to kind of just dive in and kind of show you guys how the product works. Like Cheryl said, we're not going to do a full collection on the call here. I'd love to follow up with everybody after this if anyone wants to see a live demo. But I'd love to kind of just dive in and show you guys the product. I think that's the best way to talk through it.
Let's do it.
Cool. All right, let me share my screen real fast and then we'll dive in.
Matt, one of my favorite things about the story too, the founding story, is, having been in eDiscovery myself, I used to advise attorneys, don't put anything on your phone that you don't want to come up later in a production, because we're going to have to take your whole phone. Like, that's what's going to happen. So I think solving that problem and really getting into the user's needs is just a game changer.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, the other thing we always talk about here also is, email is somewhat the same thing, right? It's a digital record, it's going into the internet. There's no clawing that back kind of thing. What's interesting about your phone is it's a much more casual conversation, right? You're not being as formal in your communications. You're not being as defensive in how you're writing. So it does. One of my favorite quotes I've heard is that only dumb criminals keep their secrets in email, right? And so it's been that's just funny that you kind of said that there, Cheryl. Okay, cool. So here's what we built. This is a cloud-based collection software that can remotely connect to smartphones anywhere in the world. It takes about 10 minutes to get a phone enrolled. So if you had a client in Morocco, I need 10 minutes with the custodian, or you need 10 minutes with your custodian, and we can start actively pulling data from their phone. So to kind of satisfy the remote access part, we're not shipping people, we're not shipping kits. So we built out in the cloud. Our current cloud is AWS. Something to kind of look forward throughout the year here is that we are also making some investments into building out an Azure environment as well for those that are Microsoft, specific. But we're built in AWS, so I'm just going to log in here, and then what we're greeted with here are these data vaults. And as this is authenticating, these are the organizations that I'm a member to. This allows us to keep data into single tenancy, and that goes for corporate ownership, that goes to GDPR compliance for in-country review and things like that. So this allows us to have, I could have a ModeOne US, a ModeOne EU, a ModeOne South America, and that gives us controls on, various, country regulations and specifications. I'm just going to jump into a demo data set here, and then we're going to be greeted with just kind of a standard database list, pretty familiar for everybody. So I'm just going to jump into this demo. And then we're greeted with the devices here. And so I'm going to walk you guys through how we kind of scope a phone, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like when it's done here. So to do a quick phone, like I said, this enrollment process takes about 10 minutes, and this is the process. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to do an iOS device. So we support, just let me back up real quick. ModeOne is able to support Androids, so anything running 8.0 and higher on a commercially available phone that's available in the US. So we're not testing Huawei's or anything like that yet. We can support any iOS device, that's iPhones and iPads, running any iOS. As long as you can power it on and connect to the internet, then we're great. And then we can also ingest device reports. So we know that sometimes a forensic image is necessary, or you may have a former collection that was a forensic image that has a lot of data in there that you may not need. So we built in some functionality so we can ingest those reports as well, and then kind of slice and dice the data and find what we're looking for. So I'm going to do the iOS side of things, jump in here, and we've broke this down into 5 easy steps, right? So the first step is just custodian information. So we can just type in, who we're collecting from, what's their phone number, what's their email address, and a friendly display name. So once we do that, this is the second pain point we wanted to solve. So the first pain point is being remote, right? Being able to access these phones in real time. The second is scoping better off the device. So no longer needing to do a full image or a full backup, giving up all your data to give up a couple text conversations. So ModeOne is now supporting 22 apps off the phone. We are not doing full backups. I cannot even support full backups. So if you needed a full backup of a phone, if it was a criminal matter or an intellectual property leak, and you guys are trying to get into the ones and zeros, that's a full file system, image, and that's not the right tool. What this tool is going to be used for is exactly what I was talking about with that M&A deal, right? You have a custodian, they had some messages in a chat app, they maybe had a voice recording off their phone. That's what's required, and that's what's in scope. And so that's what we're providing here, is better scoping tools to laser in what we're looking for. So we do that scoping in several different ways. The first here is based on application data. So if I was just to kind of show you guys, we can do like, excuse me, your text messages, contacts for friendly names. We can do a list of installed apps. So you'll notice here we don't support ephemeral messaging apps like Signal and things like that, just because it's built not to be collected. So we built in this installed apps list just to allow us to identify what's on the phone. So if I collected Cheryl's phone, ModeOne can't access Signal, but I can notice that Signal is installed on the phone. Then that's an easy conversation with Cheryl, just to say, hey, I know we're collecting your text and WhatsApp. We notice there's Signal. Is that for personal? Do you ever use it for work? She says, no, I never use it for work. We check the box and go on, right? So we wanted to build this to be as flexible as we can, given the various matters or necessities that are requiring us to collect this data. So first is the scoping by app. The second is we're able to also scope by date. So if you only needed to grab 30 days of texts or a week of text, or maybe I've got 10 years of texts on my phone, but I've only worked at the business for 12 months, right? ModeOne can focus in on that date range so that we're only collecting that data, and that's what's coming off the device. So we've got that. And then the other thing that we built, and this is great for all of you guys, this is the first time we literally pushed this out this morning. This is what we've been working on for like the last 6 months. So you guys are literally, I'm not kidding, you guys are the first ones to see this actually. So we are the only tool that can participant filter off the phone now. And what that means is, if I knew the 10 numbers of folks that I want to find off the device, all we have to do is enable participant filtering. I can add a specific person or email address if they're using like an iCloud account to message. If you have a list of those numbers, we can upload that list. And what that means is, if I keep using Cheryl as the example, but if I fed Cheryl's number into the system and then ran a collection of my phone, the only thing that's coming off the phone is Cheryl's conversations. And what this means, and this kind of helps us solve the third pain point we wanted to tackle here, is speed. So when I was at the firm, if I had a phone, I would have to tell my attorneys, I'll have Cheryl's texts collected in a week and a half. I can have all her email in 24 hours, but a few text messages is going to take a long time. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But what we're able to do here now is, because we can be so hyper targeted and we're grabbing such a smaller set of data from the device, our collections are about sub 90 minutes now. That's end to end. So that's from when we kick off and enroll the phone to the time that we're delivering it to the attorney team. It's about 90 minutes there. Obviously, there's some components that are variables there: internet connection speed, how available the custodian is, things like that. But it's been awesome. So I'm glad you guys get to see this for the first time. The fourth step for any of the lit tech kind of veterans here, this is just an efficiency gain. I always hated if I had to run a process and that process was going to end in the middle of the night and my attorneys wanted to see it first thing in the morning. So I had to set an alarm for 3 a.m. to wake up and kick off processing or something. So we just built that in here to be standard. And then the last part is just enrolling to the phone. So if I was to do this, and I'll show you guys how I'll just enroll it, just to give you guys a sense of what the enrollment looks like. And then I'll jump into the actual review of the data. Okay, so I'm just launching my agent on the phone. And that agent gives us a 6-digit code. And that's what gives us the authentication to talk to the phone, give it the scoping data that we want, and then have the phone retrieve that back for us. So I'm just gonna, I know you can't see it on my other screen, but my code is this. I'm gonna connect to that device. And in about 5 seconds, now I have remote access to my phone, right? So you guys are seeing the web UI that's gonna be accessed anywhere that's not on the ITAR list, right? Any country that's not on the ITAR list. If you've got an internet connection, you can do this. We literally will help clients at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and we can run this from our phone through Chrome or Edge or whatever you guys are using on your phone, right? We can conduct collections remotely that way too. So once we're done there, all I do is I select the phone I want, I start the collection, and then what's going to happen is there are 2 levels of custodian consent. So we're not covertly grabbing this data, we're ethically handling this, we're protecting the custodian's data privacy. And so what's happening on my end is it's asking for authentication that I can access the device. I just gave it that, and now it's going to kick off all the automated processes. So I'll pause there. Just make sure that's running. Cool. So that's the collection process. Like I said, at this point, we hang up the phone. Everyone goes about their day. Custodian can get back to work. I can get back to work. And that's the process. So just to kind of fast forward 90 minutes when this gets done, if I was to jump in and show you guys a full phone, this is my phone right here. And so we aggregate all the data we collect here and kind of built a nice, easy web UI where we can be managing this data. So if you think about how data on a phone works versus how data from like O365 works, there's no longer 4 corners of a document here. There's not one Word document. There's not one email. We could have 10 years of text that's just one big record that keeps getting added to. So we wanted to build a kind of a newer way to kind of slice and dice and get through this data, find what we're actually looking for, and then export that out for where the rest of the case data is. So you can see here, it's very familiar. It works how you would think it would work, right? I can go through my WhatsApp conversations, my phone call log, my contacts. I show my text messages here. And what we can do is we can quickly go through, and if I know, names or numbers, I can go and search those. And I have 1,000 threads. I can quickly find the thread or threads I'm looking for. I can even select those threads and then actually be viewing the conversation just like you would be seeing it on the phone, right? So once we're able to kind of work through this, like we've got ways to participant filter it. We can also add additional date filters. So maybe you've got several custodians that are running different relevancy date periods, so we can handle that. We can also support keyword searching. And once we've identified the information that we're looking for here, then I just got to minimize the viewer thing. There we go. Once we've identified the threads we're wanting, I just select that thread. I come under here to export the data. And then we give just a convenient kind of pop-up picker of just a wizard on how to export the data in whatever format you want. So on a high level, these are the, oops. These are the output file types we support right now. So aesthetic renders in PDF, text files, CSVs, JSON outputs, and RSMF. We're supporting 1.0 and 2.0 there. You guys can select whatever file type you want. We also provide eDiscovery ready load files. This has been loaded into literally every tool on the market. Everything is pre-baked. There should be little to no edits there. So that's another thing I wanted as a lit tech person. I just hated kind of updating my vendor's work. And then we can also include attachments as standalone children, or we can turn that off. So for anybody that's had to send a text conversation to a partner, and you're also including the zip file with all the attachments and explaining how to unpack those, and anyone that's had to deal with that pain point, we've kind of resolved that here as well. Last thing to show you is we can split these conversations. So if I wanted to split it by a date, I could do 24 hours, I could do weekly breaks. And what that means is if Cheryl and I had a 1 year long text thread and I wanted to split it by month, then ModeOne's framework will return 12 records for you, 1 per month. So we've got, I think the majority of the industry right now is really focusing on 24-hour splits. Our clients that are in the AmLaw 10 are now starting to focus on weekly splits because they like to see if there's a relevant 3-day period. They'd rather produce that as 1 record versus 3 separate records. So but the biggest takeaway here that I want you guys to hear is just that this is flexible for whatever you need, whatever your client needs, whatever is being requested from opposing counsel. We just wanted to make it super easy. So once we've got all that information set, I export that data, it'll kick that automatically off for us. And then all exports are aggregated here. The user will get an email when it's ready. And then we can download it and load it into whatever the eDiscovery tool is. And then after that, you guys are in control of how long the data sits in our environment. We did about 1,800 phones last year. And I think we only had about 30 that lasted longer than 30 days in our system, right? So the workflow really is connecting to the custodian, spending a couple hours grabbing that data, finding the relevant data we're looking for, and then archiving this offline. And that's the product. So that's kind of the high level. I know we're kind of going fast. I know we've got just a limited amount of time, but happy to answer questions. Cheryl, I don't know if anything came up while I was going through this, but happy to unpack anything you'd like.
Yeah, so one question, I have some, but one that came in was, is the device inoperable during that, whatever it is, 90 minutes or whatever that the collection's going on, or can they be using it still?
Great question. Yep, so you can totally use it. We just ask on the Android side, we pull directly from the phone. So we can pull over 5G or Wi-Fi. You can fully use your phone while it's in use. On the iPhone, Apple doesn't allow us to push it over Wi-Fi or 5G. So we have to use just the charging cable. So we just ask that they keep the phone plugged in to their laptop, but they can still make phone calls. They can still take text messages. And we've also built it to kind of accommodate what I call custodian collision. So like there's so many times when I was at O'Melveny where I'd be collecting a phone and then the custodian I have to go to lunch and they just unplug their phone and leave, right? And that flunked the collection and now I got to start it all over. We actually built the system to accommodate that. So even if the phone goes offline, loses connection to Wi-Fi or the internet, the custodian takes the phone to lunch. Our system actually knows where it left off. It'll pick back up when the phone is available again, and then it'll revalidate to make sure we didn't miss anything.
Love that. Very exciting. And I'm glad you have Android as well. I'm an Android girl.
Yeah, it's awesome.
How do you, Matt, how are you pricing this? Because this is so different from anything I've seen, and without getting into specifics, is it per user? Is it per device? Like, how does that work for you?
Great. Yeah, that's a great question. So that's another pain point I actually really wanted to solve. I did a case study when I was at O'Melveny across the firm, and we were paying, and people always get sticker shock here, and I can totally back up these numbers, but we were paying about $4,400 a phone to get it end to end into my attorney's hands. And that, if you think about it, that's not just the collection of the phone, right? There's PM time to set up the logistics. There's scheduling time. There's shipping kits, there's hard drives that are sent, there's the collection time, processing time, reporting, and so when you take all that stuff together and aggregate it over the month or 2 months that it takes, we were spending several $1,000s. And so my my personal pain point was I'd get a vendor bid for a phone. I'd have somebody tell me it's going to cost $1,000, and then I'd get an invoice for $4,000, and my client's super upset with me. And so the way we price this, there's two things we charge for. That's it. So we have a flat fee per device, and that covers everything. That's the collection, processing, conversion of that data to PDF or RSMF or whatever you need. And we waive the first month of hosting. We also waive all user fees. I don't want to have user fees be something that keeps people from using the system. So we just do flat fee. And then the only other thing that comes in is if your data needs to sit in my cloud for longer than 30 days, then I just charge another flat fee for hosting. That's it. And so we just wanted to make this like super clean. It's budgetable, it's predictable. What you tell your client it's going to cost is what it costs. So that's, something we wanted to tackle.
I love that. Just had another question come in. If there's any more, feel free to throw them either in the Q&A or in the chat. One of the questions that comes up fairly regularly, and surely you've heard this, is did we collect custodian XYZ's WhatsApp, right? So can you easily export out a custodian's collection report that quickly and definitively shows which components, subcomponents were collected and which might have been left behind?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do. So me and my partners are testifying experts here. And so everything that we need to have to defensively authenticate the data and audit what was taken is available. So I'm going to steal the screen real quick and just show that real fast. That's a great question. So we store that all here in the device information page. And this is also exported with every export. So you guys have this whenever you export one thread or multiple threads. So we have all defensibility metrics that we need from the phone. There are 4 identifying IDs. So there's UID, serial number, phone number, and IMEI. So we grab all of those. We then get into the device information of what operating system it was running. And then we get in here. This is what we're talking about, is what was taken, right? So we use this for both defensibility, and we also use this for a custodian kind of receipt or inventory. Like I could deliver this to the custodian to say, hey, Cheryl, I know I had your phone for an hour, or you had your phone collecting for an hour. Here's exactly what we took, right? So we can talk about what applications were taken, what date filter was applied, if we included deleted recovery. We also talk about like the total data size. So if you guys wanted to check, this is a 19 gig image. I, as the custodian, could go look at my phone and go, oh, well, I have 300 gigs of data on my phone. So that at least gives me a good slice of, okay, maybe they took a smaller amount of data from my phone. And then we get into the actual app details. So if somebody wanted to go through and check the box on every single thing we took, we can audit and validate that for everybody. So number of contacts, how many threads, how many attachments, how many deleted messages we recovered. Down here's my WhatsApp information, since that was what was specifically requested. The other thing that we added in here from client requests was we also gave the earliest and last or newest date that's available on that phone or of what we collected. So this is a full collection, so it's what's available. And why this is important is to the extent of, hey, did we collect Cheryl's WhatsApp? We can say yes, but here we can do a very quick look and say, well, maybe this case goes all the way back to 2013 and her WhatsApp conversations start in 2015. then we can have a conversation with her and say, did you have another phone? Did you download WhatsApp, in 2015? It just kind of helps us be a little bit more investigative and find out, could something be missing? Are we sure that we got everything?